One of the first things we do is create a literacy framework with the district, so take those literacy essentials. But I got a teacher head and I want to know, okay, I got 120 minutes, what do I need to do? And you have to have a literacy framework that is agreements. This is what we're going to do, and then it's loose and tight. You have 12 different, you go into a system and people are still teaching jolly phonics, even though they have something else. Okay, we actually have to have agreements around where do you have wiggle room as a teacher and choice, and where do you not? What assessments must you do? What curriculum must you do? How many minutes must you do this? And that is hard conversations, but that's the real conversations. And so what we have to think about is we're actually learning to work differently because we're making shared agreements. So Vicki, why don't you talk about that process?
Well, she just described where we were in Bullet Creek to a T.
About a year ago.
About a year ago. So I would say this, that if any of you do have the opportunity to join this cohort in January, my first phone call to Kaylani was in January. Mm-hmm. It's a great time to start this work, and I'll tell you why I kind of came knocking on her door. But it looks different in every system, right? And Kaylani and Sean do a great job about talking with you, talking with your teams, about where you are and what makes sense to start, right? Where we're gonna start, what do we need to do first? And so it's not going to look the same in every district. When I came knocking on the door, it was because a couple of principals had gone to a MAISA conference and they heard this lady, Kaylani Dunsmore, and she says we need to do small group instruction. We need to do more of that, and are we doing it correctly? And so I called up Kaylani, and I actually first called Midland Public because we're neighbors, and I heard Kaylani was working with them, so I'm like, so tell me about this, Kaylani. Like, hey, is this worth it or not? And they were like, absolutely, give her a call. So called her, and at this time in this space too, in January, I was supposed to have all of our teachers have agreement on a new K-5 comprehensive literacy program by the end of the school year so that we could kick it off that following year. And I don't know about what your districts look like, but elementary teachers, we've already adopted a math program, and it was pretty smooth. It wasn't bad. I knew I was dreading the K-5 literacy. They are so passionate about literacy, and they all have a different idea of what they should be using. I can tell you that, we were all supposed to be using the MAISA writing and reading units. Can I tell you that was actually happening in all of our K-5 buildings? Nope. Can I tell you too that they had phonics programs? Some were using Haggerty, some were using UFly, some just all of the different things. Also, our district is set up to where we have a little bit of east side, west side thing happening. Our west side is a K-5 building, Title I, so they receive Title I funds, and so because of that, they also get lots of resources and materials that we're not seeing on the other side. Well, as soon as they get that, then the east side wants those, all the things. On the east side, it's a little different. We have two elementary buildings, one K2 and one 3-5. And a lot of little blame. I don't know if anybody have that, like, why does the west side get to do, or why does the east side? They don't do, that they're using this and they're not really supposed to be using this. Who said that they could use this? So we had a problem. And I did not want to go down this road, but we knew, my superintendent said, no, we are all going to be using the same curriculum program. Let's figure it out. Well, then after talking with Kaylani, immediately I realized, she's like, you need to back your train up a little bit. Do you know what you want literacy to look like in your buildings? First, you need agreement on that. And so after a few phone calls with Kaylani, we entered the work and went to my superintendent and said, I need another year. And here's why I need another year before we're going to adopt a program. It's because we actually need to figure out and create a literacy framework, because before we can even go to pick out a program, we need to understand what we want our program to do, right? And so until we get those agreements, we need to create this literacy framework. So all of these different pieces need to come together first. Then we're going to move forward, and just give me another year. They talk to you a lot. So when you're doing this literacy framework, we got a group of teachers together, and representatives from all the buildings, all the grade levels, and we came up and created, you can see the Bullet Creek's literacy framework and the framework is the same for all three of the buildings. And you're going to do those shared agreements. That group went together, and then we went and we presented it to the whole staff. So all of our K-5 staff are looking at it. providing input on it. And then we would come back and then we finalize our literacy framework and decided, yep, this is what we all say is important and what we should be doing and what it looks like. Doesn't mean that it all looks like that today, right? So we can write things about small group instruction and that we believe in it and this is what it should look like. It doesn't mean it looks like that today. We need to train our staff now to put these pieces and implement these in the classroom. You will see then too, printed out Pine Rivers, I believe, on the back of the literacy framework. That's what those loose and tights are. So as Keilani was saying, that in that moment when they first created, this was the first loose and tight that happened, Pine River was saying, these are your musts. This is how long you should be doing instruction for this. This is the resource you should be using and the ones that might be optional. And so you can start rolling that out because sure, you might have different tier 2 interventions that perhaps they can use, but what are they? What are those, and list them out? Or do you not? As a district, you've said, no, you're using A, then you're using B, and then you're using C. So you can lay that all out and your staff understands. When I called her in January, we had this then written before we left the school that May. All of the staff knew. We then started to put together our inquiry cycle. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to get to know Keilani or Sean because you're going to have phone call, little Zoom meetings with them every 2 weeks sometimes once a month, but we were doing it at the beginning like twice a month. And you're putting those action plans together and meeting with the principals will join you. So we had our literacy coaches actually join us as well and put that action plan in place. What do we need to do first? And surveying our staff, we all decided we wanted to start with small group instruction. K2, they do a lot of small group instruction. They're used to it. 3-5, our 3-5 teachers had no idea what that meant or what that should look like. I will also tell you that our K2 teachers found out that they really didn't know what small group instruction should be. So we decided to start with that. It helps you then know where your staff needs to go next. Within your inquiry cycles. Do you think you have this small group instruction now that we've trained? Do you not? What should be our next step? So those pieces are good to use with your staff along the way. So then come the summer, we did a huge training. All of our staff came together and small group instruction, and that first inquiry cycle then started the minute we started the school year in the fall. And we have our look for it. So these were what we were going to tell teachers that when your principals are coming in, this is kind of what they're going to look for. Then Keilani laid another bomb on me. And she goes, oh, and by the way, you're going to have your teachers go into each other's classrooms and they're going to do these look fors too. We're going to deprivatize practice. And I don't know about you, but at the time, if I were to go to my teachers and say, hey, you're going to go into other teachers' classrooms and you're going to invite other teachers in to watch your instruction, I'm like, oh gosh, the union's going to be calling me tomorrow. This is not going to be fun. We had to talk about that with them a little bit and talk with them that it's not about inviting people in to critique what you were doing. It's about I'm going into your classroom so that I can then change my practice. I can take something away from what I saw, reflect on that, and now go and change my practice. And we had to train our teachers in that a little bit. The principals created these Google Docs so that they could say, yup, I went into so-and-so's classroom, and we had these like little comments they could make after it, like, what did you think? And it was a shared doc. And our first teachers were like, it was great. Shelley did a great job. Nope, that's not really what we were looking for. We created STEM questions, and I shouldn't say we, Carrie Retzloff created those for us. STEM questions so that teachers knew reflective questions to go into and ask about their own practices when they were going into the classrooms. And I will tell you, this was a game changer. I was convinced that I had a particular building that this was not going to work, they were not going to do it, and they were one of the first ones to be like, okay, and started turning in their results and started reflecting on it. This is where creating these different systems and challenging the culture that you already have in your buildings can really make a difference. Out of anything that we've done so far with our work with the LLN, that one particular thing of going in and watching other teachers so that I can reflect on my own practice has been huge. It also helps create trust. because the teachers know exactly this is what they're coming in for. Those look-fors, this is exactly why that other teacher's coming into my room. These are shared agreements. I know that during small group instruction, this is what it should look like, so I shouldn't be afraid to have somebody come in and see that. A very particular example from Floyd Elementary. This principal had everybody put in what times during the day that they were doing small group instruction so people could come in. Well, a first grade teacher couldn't get into any other first grade classrooms because of when her prep was, but the only open spot was fourth grade. And that was another eye-opener. She came out of that, went straight to the principal and said, I always wondered why in first grade I have to do this. And she goes, it never made sense to me. I don't know why we're drill and killing this piece. She goes, I saw it in fourth grade and now I know why. Now I know that connection because it lives here. And that's my job in first grade, to do that skill here. So it can be eye-opening even to have them experience this throughout different grade levels. I truly believe too that all of this collaborative work has now stopped our east side, west side, stopped our why isn't the K2 giving us kids, ready to be in third grade. This literacy talk has created such a collaborative atmosphere at our district that east side, west side is gone. So we were actually able then to bring a group of teachers together, have them look at our literacy framework, have them review different curriculum programs, and come to an agreement on what curriculum program that they wanted to use. And it was much less painful than I thought it would be. And we asked the questions. We put our literacy framework right next to any program, and we had to say, yes, this fits, no, this doesn't, this part fits. And we selected it from there. So that was just my story.